Town of North Smithfield Planning Board meeting for Thursday, April 27, 2023 is called to order at 7:01. First on the agenda is a roll call. Dr. Benoit?
Here.
Ms. Marandola?
Here.
And welcome to the board.
Thank you.
Mr. Porter?
Here.
And the chair is here. Absent are Mr. Menard, Mr. Keene, and Ms. Roberts. Okay. Dr. Roberts, yes, thank you. Next, on the review the minutes from the March 23rd meeting. We'll give you a minute to look at those and see if you have any questions or comments. Do you have any?
I wasn't present.
Oh, you weren't present for that, okay. Did you have any?
Yeah, I'm just refreshing my.
I will make a motion that we accept the meeting minutes of March 23rd,
As is?
as is.
And do we have a second? I'll second. I'll second the motion.
Can I vote on it? I wasn't present.
You can still vote on it.
Okay, I approve.
Okay, thanks. So, Dr. Benoit, that's a yes?
Yes.
Ms. Marandola, yes?
Yes.
And a yes from the chair, so meeting minutes are approved as is.
Jeff,
Oh.
some folks can't hear.
Okay. Is that better?
Well, I don't know if it's you or the audience.
It might be the, okay, I do have my mic on.
Carl, is it the vinyl? The vinyl, yeah. Oh, yeah, okay.
All right, I'll try to be a little louder. Going to use my outdoor voice. So next item on the agenda is disclosure. Do any planning board members have any potential conflicts of interest in the matters before the planning board this evening? Hearing none. Disclosure and notice. Planning board members, do any planning board members need to disclose any ex parte communications about any contested or material adjudicatory facts or opinions concerning the merits of any application before the board this evening? No, hearing none. Okay, our voting members for this evening is all of us. So Dr. Benoit, Ms. Marandola, Mr. Porter, and the chair. Okay. So our first item of business, a public informational meeting, major land development, master plan, Buxton Conservation Development, application Frank Jacques, location 300 Buxton Street, Assessor's Plat 1. Do you want to provide a little summary before we go, Mr. Crillo?
This application is for a 12-unit conservation development on a 25-acre parcel. The parcel is bisected in two areas by wetlands. There's uplands in the middle of the parcel, and there's uplands to the rear of the parcel. So the applicant is requesting to cluster the development in the center of the parcel. That way, there will be no disturbance to the wetlands, to the top half of the parcel and the bottom half. It's allowed under the subdivision regulations, section 4.1, and under the zoning code, section 2.0. It allows multiple buildings on the lot or smaller lot sizes in order to create a compact development in preserving the environmentally sensitive areas. The applicant is requesting relief from certain elements under an abundance of caution. They're asking to have a street that is not that is a private highway. This is going to be a condo-type development, so that is something that would be authorized under the condo development. They're requesting to add roadways less than 30 feet. They were requesting 22 and 15. However, the planning office is recommending 24 feet at a minimum. They're requesting elimination of sidewalks because of the environmental sensitivity, and have a street in excess of 600 feet. However, The street is a loop in a circle, so it's not a dead-end street, although getting in, I think, is in excess of 600 feet.
Okay. Anything else? Nope. Okay.
Hi, good evening. My name is David Russo. I'm a professional engineer with DiPrete Engineering, and I'm here tonight representing the owner, Jacques Farm LLC. The address of the property is 300 Buxton Street, located on Assessor's Plat 1, Lot 35. The total area of the site is approximately 25.8 acres, and approximately 21 acres of the property is considered suitable for development or upland area. The site is zoned rural agricultural, RA, and it's located west of the intersection of Cedar Mill Road and Buxton Street. And this property is located within a DEM natural heritage area, but we did confirm with DEM that that's located, the actual concern is located west of the property, so DEM does not have a concern on this particular property. The site has a existing gravel access road, which leads into the site through a wetland area. Once you get beyond that first wetland area, there's an upland area in the central portion of the site, and then there's another wetland area located as you go further south on the property. The wetlands on the property have been located by a professional wetland biologist, so they are shown as accurate wetlands. The buffers that we have shown on the plan are all current to the new DEM rules and regulations. And the soils on the site are mostly fine sandy looms, and they're also suitable for development. If you could go to sheet 2, please. Excuse me, 3, please. So as you can see on the plan here in front of you, the wetlands are shown in the green hatch. There is a stream located in the southernmost wetland. On this plan, north is on the right side of the plan, south is on the left side of the plan. You can see there's an upland area in the middle, and then there's another upland area as you go further south. The topography, for the most part, in those upland areas slopes down towards the wetlands, so there's not much undulation through the site besides those areas sloping down.
If I could interrupt you for just a minute here, one of our board members has arrived. So, Mr. Keene, do you have anything to disclose in terms of conflicts of interest or ex parte communications regarding anything? Great. Mr. Keene, of course, will be a voting member, but in addition to the other 4. Thank you.
So that's a general summary of the existing conditions on the site. And the first step in the process for the development is to create a conventional yield plan, which is just strictly for density, to see what the density of the property could yield. We did complete that. It's part of our submission package, and it yielded 12 single-family units, which is in line with the 21 acres of usable area in the zoning code. So after that was done, we have a density of 12 single-family units, and we are proposing 6 duplex units on the property. If you could go to the last sheet 5. We're proposing 6 duplex units with 3 bedrooms in each. This is allowed by zoning ordinance 6.20.6, and this allows us to cluster the development in the center of the site in that upland area. We are proposing individual septic systems on each unit. That could change to a community septic depending on the testing out there. We think that soil testing will be sufficient to do individual systems for each unit out there. The units will be served by wells. And as planning staff indicated, originally we were proposing a 22-foot wide road, and we were proposing a 15-foot wide road through that wetland. It's an existing road about 15 feet wide, and the applicant in the past obtained a DEM application alter for that roadway, and they actually had it approved at a wider width from DEM. So in talking with the planning staff, we're in agreement that we are okay with a 24-foot wide road for the development, which would suffice for fire and planning staff. We plan on this property, we're in the really early stages of this. This is a conceptual plan. We will have to do additional drainage analysis. Part of that includes meeting the new DEM regulations, which we're required to show no increase in stormwater flow to any of the wetland areas. We're also required to provide water quality for that stormwater flow. And that's part of the next step if we get beyond the conceptual or we start doing the engineering. The other aspects of that is we'd be required to do a soil erosion control plan for construction to maintain all the bare soils on the site during construction, and we'd also be required to do an operation and maintenance manual for any of the drainage that gets installed on the property. The open space, as shown on this, we're proposing to preserve basically the south side where the wetlands start. That south side's about 13 acres, just under 13 acres, and that's where we're proposing to keep the open space, and that's above and beyond the requirement of the zoning code. This development will be a homeowners association. The homeowners association would be responsible for all the maintenance on the site. So being a private road, they'd be responsible for the private roadway, the drainage, the septic systems, the wells. So anything that has to do with that, the homeowners association would take care of. And lastly, the part of the preliminary package that we'd have to do with the next step is we'd have to develop a landscape plan for the property. The entrance to the site has some landscaping already installed in there, so it'd be mostly in the interior of the site that we'd have to create a landscape plan for. The last item is each of these units by the zoning code for the duplexes will be required to have one low moderate income per unit. So each two, there'd be one and one market rate in there. That's a general summary of the development. If any of the board members have questions, be happy to answer.
I'd just like to clarify the last part you said. Out of each duplex, one will be affordable? So
Per
there'll
the
be a
code,
total of six?
That is correct. Yep, that's
Six-
per the code.
50%?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Anything else, or should we open up the public hearing?
I'll make a motion that we open up the public hearing.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No? All right, the public hearing is open as of 7:14, so here are some of the rules. So everything, you can come up to the podium, introduce yourself, and direct all comments to the board, not to each other or to the applicant directly. I'm going to ask you, there's a lot of people here, there may be a lot of people that wish to speak, so I'm not going to put a specific time limit on anyone, but what I would ask is that if what you want to say has been said by someone before you, maybe chime in and say, I want to add my, my 2 cents to that, but don't just repeat it, okay, so in consideration of everyone. The other thing, we have one of the PSP has put together a rather sizable research and some thoughts on this, so I am going to ask that that person speak first, and then listen to that, and then either add on to it, or, it may address some of the things you were going to bring up anyway, all right? So with that, Mr. Lentz.
If I could ask for some help, Arnie, would you give each of the board members one of those packages, and also the planning staff? And Kelly, if you would hand out as many of those as we'll go around for the audience. These are all my notes. I've got lots to say, and so I put together the notes so they don't have to take any handwritten notes, and so I can remember what all I wanted to say. And this doesn't sound very loud here. Can you hear me through the microphone?
I can
What do
certainly,
we need to do here? Are we on?
yeah. I
All right,
think so.
I'll lean into the microphone as best I can. First of all, I want to say that I'm in favor of this development.
Scott?
I believe that.
Scott?
Oh, sorry.
Could you introduce yourself?
Oh, I'm sorry.
please?
You already know who I am.
Yes.
I'm sorry. It's in my notes. I forgot to read my first note. Scott Lentz, I'm 474 Buxton Street. I'll get to a little bit of background in a moment. But first of all, I want to say I'm actually in favor of this development. I'm in favor of somebody using their property and developing their property as is allowed by the regulations and the laws of the state. And I'm especially in favor of this conservation development proposal because this is a really challenging site for a residential development, and the conservation option seems like a really good option for this particular site. I'd like to commend DiPrete Engineering for trying to squeeze as many houses on this site as possible. Like I said, it's a challenging site, and they really squeezed as many in there as they can. Since this is an informational meeting, like I said, I have lots of information to give you. I want to give you just a little bit of background about me so you know where this is coming from. I'm the largest abutter to this property. I have 1,950 feet of abutting property line. I bought the major portion of my property in 1995. Then I purchased 5 acres from the Plat family. They were selling up a 35-acre parcel because I wanted a buffer between that property and me because I knew eventually there's going to be a subdivision. And so I'm really happy that I have that buffer. So this subdivision doesn't bother me. I have that buffer that I bought in 2001. In 2002, Mr. Jacques bought the remainder of that property. And since that time, I've been walking on the surrounding properties, 300 Buxton Street, and my other neighbors' properties under a neighborly agreement with people in the area that we can walk on each other's properties. It's just because we enjoy being out there with the critters and the vegetation. So I have lots of on-the-ground experience on that property. That is until I was disinvited from the property last year in 2022. So I don't walk on 300 Buxton Street since last year. Now, onto my information. Under the subdivision regulations 4.1H, the planning board must review the conventional yield plan for feasibility and may require additional information to determine feasibility. And that's what I'm here to talk about today, is I have lots of information for the planning board to consider to determine the feasibility of the conventional subdivision, so they can determine if the conservation development is warranted. We have somebody from DiPrete Engineering. Mr. Chairman, could you ask 3 questions? Who performed the wetland survey? When was it done? And is it flagged on site currently?
Okay. Do we need those now? We usually save until the end of your presentation.
Well,
We would do that.
in order for me to proceed, I'd like to know
okay.
if the wetland survey, who performed the
Okay.
wetland survey, when
Who
it was
from,
performed, and is it flagged on site?
Would that be a question for you then?
Dave Russo, DiPrete Engineering. Tim Tuig from our office, who's a wetland biologist, did the most recent wetland flagging on the site. I don't have the exact date, but it was.
But when was the survey done? So who did the actual survey?
The actual survey, we don't have an actual survey done. Of the property line, we do not have an actual survey of the property line done. But in terms of the wetlands, that was current with our wetland biologist. I don't have the exact date he did it, but within the, I'd say, past 3 to 4 months, current to this plan.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to counter that. No survey has been done recently. The last survey was done by me in the year 2000. There are no flags on the site currently. I can see over the wall. I can't walk on the property, but I can see over the wall where the wetlands are. There are no flags on the wetlands. I can provide you, here it is. If I could ask Arnie to give them a copy of my survey. If you look, if you have the drawings in front of you, if you spread out the drawings, you'll see that this survey is exactly what they are using for the wetland survey for the conventional development. That was done for me when I bought the 5 acres from the Plat family in the year 2000.
And who
So-
did this one?
Excuse me?
Who did this one?
It's on there.
Okay.
The surveyor was Mr. Nyberg. The actual people who did the wetlands part was National Resources something. If you open it up, it's in the bottom left.
Yeah.
It's in the bottom left of the drawing. The National Resources something. I forget the name. Anyway, so that survey was done in the year 2000. Again, it was done for me, and it's public information. Once it's filed with the administrative subdivision that I did, it's public information. I have no objection with them using that information. However, it's 23 years old. Now, wetlands change, right, over time by themselves. So it's 23 years old. In this case, there have been human modifications near the wetlands. There was a forestry clear cut of about 5 or 8 acres done next to the wetlands. Nothing wrong with that. It was done appropriately. But for about 500 feet, it goes right up to the wetlands. So that changes the wetlands. When they did the clear cut, there were some big forestry skidders that went through the wetlands. So that changed the wetlands. You can still see the skidders ruts that went through the wetlands. So I don't think that this survey is still valid. It's up to the planning board as to whether a new wetland survey needs to be done. It actually might be to the applicant's benefit. The clear cut may have dried out some of the wetlands. There may be more land available, but to me it looks like it's out of date, and the planning board needs to decide whether a new wetland survey should be done.
Yes, sir.
So the plan that you're looking at is a wetland, they flagged those wetlands. Our biologist, Tim Tuig, as another biologist, went out, that is a base, and they verified that hasn't changed significantly. So he has gone out there and verified that, because we had to get some additional stream locations for the stream on the south side of the site. So they do go out and verify that base plan. The other thing is that typically at a master plan level, something like this, sometimes we may not even have the wetland flags. We may be using GIS. So this is more data than we even typically have for a master plan level concept.
Okay, thank you.
All right, next subject. There's a really cool feature on this property that not many people know about. There's a vernal pool at almost the highest point of the property, which is really, really, really unique. Because of the way the ledge is formed and the earth around it, there's a vernal pool of about 25 feet in diameter at the highest point of the property. It's just really cool. I've given you the Latin long that I got from Google Earth, which is approximate, but I'm sure that somebody will be able to find it if they use those Latin long.
Could you point it out on the map?
It's in your package. If you go to the map, not the drawing. In your package, there's a drawing that the package I gave you. The first drawing in my package, there's a location of the vernal pool. It'd be kind of hard for me to. I can't reach that high.
Yeah, I got it.
I see it, thank you.
Okay, yeah. So anyway, I've given you the Latin long approximate from Google Earth, and per the current DEM rules for wetlands, section 3.23H3, vernal pools with no prior development around them need a 100-foot buffer to protect them. So houses that are shown on lots number 7 and number 8 may not be able to be built where they are shown. They may have to be relocated as far as the conventional plan goes. I don't know how that's going to work out. You need to find the vernal pool and the 100-foot buffer and determine how that works out. Okay, on to the next item. Intermittent streams. Again, if you look at that drawing, on my property, there's a huge ledge that's about 500 by 300 feet and 40 feet high. The ledge, of course, doesn't soak up water. It drains off the ledge. And so and it rains, and in the spring melt, that runs down onto 300 Buxton Street, and an intermittent stream forms. And I've shown the intermittent stream on the map. I mean, when it flows hard, I would guess there's 50 gallons a minute going through that stream. It's quite an intermittent stream. It does dry up in the summer, but that's why it's called an intermittent stream.
Which direction does it flow? North, south?
It flows from west to east. the map you're looking at is not north to south, sorry. If, from the top of the drawing to the bottom is west to east. Sorry about that, I didn't put a compass on there. At the point where the stream meets the stream that you see in the wetlands, the gully that it's formed is about 3 feet deep and 10 feet wide. What I found in the DEM freshwater wetlands rules is what the definitions state as follows under 3.4A67. Stream means any flowing body of water or watercourse other than a river that flows long enough each year to develop and maintain a channel and that may carry groundwater discharge or surface runoff. Such watercourses may not have flowing water during extended dry periods, but may contain isolated pools or standing water. Now, in the wetlands rules, under 3.23I7, it says that all streams in the urban region are designated a 50-foot buffer zone. So that stream needs to be identified, and the buffer zone needs to be applied. On the next pages, I had this wonderful rainstorm on Sunday, this past Sunday, the 23rd, 2.5 inches. So I went down on the edge of my property, and you'll see some pictures. It's only in the planning board package. Sorry, I didn't have enough color printer for the audience, but you'll see that there's standing water just over the property line from my property after that rain, where the stream forms. So regardless of the intermittent stream, I don't think you can build a house there with a basement. If there's standing water in April, how are you gonna have a basement there? And also I wonder, can you have a leach field there? Because of all that water, would a leach field work? And then I have a question for the board to consider. I don't know the answer. It's something for the board to consider is, and I apologize, when I printed this, I missed a bit. On the last page of your package is the paragraph from the town LDSR, the Land Development Regulations, and it says that on sites served by ISDS, the Individual Service Disposal Systems, density shall be further determined by evaluating the number of dwellings or other uses that could be supported by ISDS on lots in a conventional subdivision. Lots or dwellings units shown on a conventional yield plan shall not include dwellings proposed to be serviced by an ISDS that requires the granting of a variance by the Rhode Island Department of Environmental Management. The planning board shall determine the suitability of the parcel to be developed as a conventional subdivision based on the soils information provided by the applicant, upon observations made during the site visit to the property, and/or upon other evidence available to the board at the time during the development review process. So the question I have for the board is, will those houses that are proposed in the conventional development be able to have an ISDS? At least one of them, I think, it's not going to be feasible. It's too wet. You can't do a leach field there. And so I would say, do you need perk tests for each site to determine if the ISDS is possible? I don't know what the process is, but I question at least one site in terms of being able to have a leach field in that property. Now, if you don't all have your drawings, but look at lot number 6. Those of you who have your drawings. Lot number 6.
Would it be easier for CJ to pull up the page?
If you can zoom in on lot number 6.
CJ, I think it's page number 4.
Hey, can you zoom as well? Okay.
And I think at our next meeting, we need to make sure that CJ has proper technology, so we're not looking at PDFs on browsers anymore.
You have to go to the town council and ask for funding.
Been there.
Yeah, page 4, upper left part of the drawing, if you can zoom in on it. Yeah, keep going a little bit more if you can zoom in some more. Here you go. Yep. lot number 6 is this strip here. Now, I think that reading the regulations, it just barely makes the legality of, of a lot. But it's like, are you serious? Do you want to consider that to be an appropriate lot? I'll leave that to the planning board to say, is that lot acceptable to count as a lot? It's like, you gotta be kidding me. Anyway, I'll leave that to you. So page through my standing water photos, and we'll get to page number 4 on my list, and leave this here, because you'll need to see the map again. There's a stone wall which doesn't show up on the drawings. The stone wall runs right about here. So near lot 7, through the cul-de-sac, and what is this? And lot 8. According to the town ordinances, to put in a subdivision, the planning board has to approve either the removal or moving of a stone wall. So what I ask is, the planning board needs to decide if they would have approved the removal or moving of the stone wall for this portion to be feasible. Right, so it's a planning board decision. I can't make that decision. You have to decide whether you would have approved it or not for those lots in that cul-de-sac to be feasible. All right, moving on. The length of the road. The regulations state that dead-end streets, and although the planner said that it's not a dead-end street, it sure looks like a dead-end street to me. It doesn't, there's no loop. It goes from the street to a cul-de-sac, and that's it. That's a dead end. So the subdivision regulations say that 600 feet is the maximum. I have a list here of some other subdivisions that are dead-end streets that are both less than 600 feet, and there's some that are more than 600 feet. And again, the board really has that in their purview to decide whether that's appropriate or not. And that's according to the subdivision regulations. Okay, moving on, sidewalks and curbs. I have a little history here. I was on the planning board, appointed in 2014. I served until 2018. Before I was even on the planning board, sidewalks and granite curbs are required in the subdivision regulations. In 2015, the board actually considered the sidewalks and curbing, and I happened to have made a proposal for an alternate design, which I felt was more economical and actually more practical. But the board decided that they were going to leave the subdivision regulations as they stand. From that time, I supported the application of the regulations as they stand, which means sidewalks are required, granite curbs are required. 300 Buxton Street proposal, the applicant has not really provided any justification, no hardship for not providing sidewalks and granite curbs. So the way I'm thinking, sidewalks and granite curbs are required. It's in the subdivision regulations. They are required. I have a list here of other subdivisions that I'm aware of, and lots of them have sidewalks and a lot of them have granite curbs. Somehow some of them don't, but a good portion of them have sidewalks and granite curbs per the subdivision regulations. What I think is most important is that the subdivision regulations were put in place by the town with public input. Excuse me just a minute. The process was gone through. Public input was had. The subdivision regulations require sidewalks and granite curbs. That's what the town residents have decided they want for subdivisions developed in town. They want them built to a certain standard. So as I say, I don't see any reason why this subdivision should get a waiver for not putting in sidewalks and granite curbs. That's the standard. Okay, moving on. There's some errors in the application letter from DiPrete Engineering. First one is, it's Cider Mill Road, not Cedar Mill Road. And there is no Tower Hill Road in North Smithfield that they refer to. I don't know where they got that. Also, the existing driveway crossing is on the southern portion of the northern part of the wetland. It is not crossing the southern part of the wetland. So those are 3 corrections to their application letter. Now I have some additional items which are really sort of requests by me, and the other people in the audience may agree. One is the open space reservation. There are 3 options in the subdivision regulations for the open space reservation. They are proposing that it would be owned by the condominium association. I would prefer that be deeded to the town and the land trust, the North Smithfield Land Trust jointly. That provides a much better legal way of preserving that open space in perpetuity. The land trust is all about preservation, and if the town is involved, then the maintenance of it is helped by the fact that the town is one of the owners. So I would propose that it's conveyed jointly to the town and the North Smithfield Land Trust. By the way, that's the way that the Booth Pond facility is done, and it works quite well. And I note that the applicant needs one more waiver. The subdivision regulations require 2 means of public access from the street. That's in section 5.7A2. So they need to add that to their waiver list to get the planning board to say that the single access from the street is permissible. Now I have some special items. There's a existing residence at 320 Buxton Street, and it shares the driveway with 300 Buxton Street that they're planning to convert to a private road. So I propose that there be a stipulation from the planning board that a legal provision needs to be made for those residents to have access to the private road, and also identify any costs that would be borne by the resident at 320 Buxton Street. Another item is the compost removal. I don't know how many board members remember, but there was a compost operation at 300 Buxton Street, and the compost piles are still there. It's probably about, I'm guessing about 3 acres of compost piles. About 1/3 of that, what was causing the horrendous stench that the people in this neighborhood will remember. It was awful. So when that compost pile is disturbed, that stench is going to be right back. So what I'm proposing is a stipulation that needs to be moved very, very fast. And I'm proposing here that it needs to be done in 1 day. Get the big equipment in there, big loaders and big trucks, and get it out of there fast. And I would propose that let them do it before dawn, and after sunset, let them do it and get it out of there in 1 day, so we don't have to endure that stench for more than a day. And the final one, this is kind of one on my not favorite list, but unfavorite list. There's 2 Japanese knotweed infestations on the property. Actually 3, but two on the back where they would be doing the construction. And the Japanese knotweed is just an incredibly invasive plant. If they disturb the piles where that Japanese knotweed is now and spread it around, it's going to be worse. So what I'm proposing is that it needs to be dug up and carried away, and it has to be incinerated. You can't just take it away and give it to somebody else. you gotta take it someplace where you can incinerate it and kill the Japanese knotweed. And you've gotta actually dig about 3 feet down and about 10 feet around from the visible plants in order to get rid of the Japanese knotweed so it doesn't just come back again. I know this well. I've got a patch on my property, and I've been fighting it for 10 years. I'm slowly winning, but it's been 10 years of trying to get rid of this invasive plant. And that's it. Any questions? All right, thank you.
Hi, my name is Donna Bevan. I live at 356 Buxton Street, and I've known Mr. Jacques for years because before he had that road to get into his own property, he came through my property until my then husband asked him to stop building his own way to get into his property. He used to speak to us, and he told us when he bought that farm that he could build 2 houses there. 2 buildings there. One was for the caretaker of the farm, and the other one would be for the family of the farm. And so he built his farm stand, and he also sold off that other piece of property to somebody who lived right behind my house. So at that time, that's all he said he could get, were 2 buildings on that property. So I'd like to know how come all of a sudden he can put in all these houses? Because at the time, there wasn't enough frontage to build all those houses, and the frontage has stayed the same from the road. So that's my question that I would ask you to look into.
I'll actually go back to some of Mr. Lentz's comments first, and then I'll address that if you'd like. In terms of, I tried to take as many notes as I could from all the comments he had, but in terms of the intermittent stream, I'm not a biologist. I'd have to have our biologist go and look at there. It could be an intermittent stream. It could also be an ASSF, which is an area subject to storm flow, which runs when you get stormwater runoff. I'm not going to say which one it is because I'd have to have a biologist look at it.
One second, David. Mr. Chairman,
Oh, I'm
may I
sorry.
just,
I can re-say that then.
may I just make a comment before you go any further? So the site was looked at by a wetlands biologist. They went out there and determined what they believe to be extent of the wetland and the buffers. The applicant has applied to DEM already. We received notice for DEM to go out and verify the wetlands. I mean, we can talk about wetlands, but at the end of the day, DEM is the entity responsible for determining the extent of the wetlands. They have not, and it is in the process currently of being reviewed by DEM, and if it gets to the next stage, which we don't know that it will or not, that information will be before this board and verified by the state agency.
In terms of Lot 6 comment, it may be an awkward shaped lot, but I don't see any reason why a house couldn't be put on there and a septic and a well couldn't be put on the lot. It may not be a very ordinary shape, but I don't see any reason why that lot's not feasible. And in terms of the stone wall, it's a conventional yield plan. In theory, you could put a little hole in the stone wall and we could preserve it in some manner on the conventional yield plan. So I understand the concern, but I don't, with the conventional yield plan, we're looking at density and not, aesthetics, I'd say. In terms of the sidewalk comment, we asked for that waiver specifically because really there's no sidewalks to connect to in that vicinity, and we'd have to bring sidewalks through a wetland. So we'd have our roadway, and then we'd have sidewalks along the side going through that wetland, so it would create more disturbance within that wetland area. So that was the reason behind asking for the waiver on the sidewalks. Sheet 5 would be the next one. So we'd have to bring, sidewalks through that wetland area, where, in that area, we'd have to add them on that area, so it'd be, more significant disturbance within that wetland area.
So the other thing, I think the center of the actual development piece there, so this, okay, so this may also address the comment about cul-de-sac versus loop. So that looks like a loop.
That'd be a loop.
Okay, no loop. And what were you saying about bringing the sidewalks?
I'm just saying that the sidewalks, we'd have to bring the sidewalks out through that wetland area in the front. So we're already, there's an existing 15-foot wide roadway. We're already expanding that to 24 feet. And then you have, maybe a grass strip in your sidewalk, and it just, it expands it. And then it's going out to Buxton Street, which there's really not connecting to anything besides the roadway in that area. So that was the reason for the waiver request on the sidewalks.
Now, you said previously you've gotten some okay or something from DPM about making that roadway wider.
Yes,
How much?
this roadway that is shown there was a previous application to alter, and I believe it was about 30 feet, and they approved that, but they built it as 15 feet. So we'd have to go back, for our DM permit, we're gonna have to go back for another application to alter. Yeah, and DM, part of the requirements with DM, when you go to them, you have to show, they like to see that we're asking for waivers from town requirements to reduce roadway widths and impervious area. So that's the reason for the request on that. The knotweed, the Japanese knotweed, I can't speak to that, but I have seen that on other projects where the landscape architect can incorporate stuff on their landscape plan to try to remediate that. In regards to the question, and I didn't catch her last name, the woman that just spoke from 356 Buxton, when you do a land development project, it's based on the conventional yield plan. So there's existing frontage on the road now, but you're proposing roads and you create more frontage for more lots. And that's what we're doing with the conventional yield plan. You're showing proposed public roads, and you're showing how you meet the zoning code. And we've yielded 12 lots on that conventional plan.
You're proposing a private road.
On the conventional yield plan, when you do a conventional yield plan, it's a public roadway that you're showing, and it must meet the public roadway standards. But the development we're proposing is a private road, correct? And that's allowed by the zoning code. Not necessarily. We have the conventional yield plan that's showing a public roadway that meets the zoning code, which yields the 12 lots. The proposed development is a private roadway on one, and it would be a condominium development, basically. So there'll be 12 units on one lot, and that's allowed by the zoning code. So there won't be, they'll all be on one lot, and it'll be a condominium.
So the other lot was, just surrounding it? Surrounding the one lot?
There's an open space lot that we delineated, and part of the planner's comments was, when we get to that stage, delineating where that open space is. And typically, when we go to DEM with something like that, they'd probably want markers anyway, just so it's clear where that open space starts or that conservation area starts.
Robert Bevan, 356 Buxton Street. So my concern, I worked for the DPW a couple years back, and my concern is if the homeowners organization folds, then the town will be responsible for this road currently is an unpaved road. We already have issues in this town with Rankin Path. My concern is the town would then have to take on another unpaved road, which has a stream coming through it, as the first speaker alluded to, and I think that upkeep would just be expensive. That's my concern. And to address the second point, or the other point, about why there's no sidewalks in the area, it's because Buxton Street was built back in the 1700s as an old dirt road. So it didn't have the requirements to have sidewalks and curbing at that time. If it folds. Well, if it's already built. I don't know if they planned on it being paved or not. I haven't seen any mention of that in their planning. But the town also has plenty of other roads that currently need to be paved, that are already paved. Then we'd be taking on an additional cost if that. So who removes the snow? Would it be the town? And my other concern is I don't think that road is actually as listed. I think it's actually narrower in certain points than they have it listed. I really have concerns that a fire apparatus would even be able to make it up that road as it exists. Right.
I'm Greg McPherson, 520 Buxton. Curious what the regulations are for notice of the hearing in development from the town? Yeah.
This is a master plan, so there was to be an ad placed in the paper at least 10 days before the meeting, and a mail notice. Postcard is what the statute calls for, but we had them do certified notice to a 500-foot radius.
Okay, because I didn't get any postcard. That was the first concern. Second, with the sidewalks, if you look at how many people walk on Buxton Street, I think that you would see that already on a narrow road, the benefit of having sidewalks. On the way here, I passed 6 kids walking on the side of the road. So
Just to clarify, the sidewalks will be within a private development, not in the public roadway.
right, yep. Just another thing to consider for the board. As far as people living there, that's 12 units. So significant people walking down a narrow road, regardless of private or not. And then, you know, just driving down Buxton Street, I don't know how wide Buxton Street is, but you can see there's not, you have 2 people walking dogs, and you can't have 2 cars pass, so. Yeah, yep. Yes, yeah, that's all. Yeah. Yeah, I had a "we missed you," but personally, I don't feel that that's sufficient to let everybody know.
The notice is required to be first class. We asked them to do certified. So the "we missed you," if you got a "we missed you" certified, it's really, the onus is on the person who receives that to go pick that certified up.
Yep, so, just so that you know, my driveway is about 1,600 feet long.
Okay?
We have somebody home all the time. Nobody came up our driveway. We just got it in the mail. But a postcard is required, wasn't sent, and I'm not the only person in this room that did not get anything.
Well,
On that certified mail, it's really inconvenient for people on Buxton Street because if they miss their certified mail, they have to drive to Woonsocket to go get their certified mail. It's much more efficient to just do the postcard as is required by the regulation.
just to be clear, the requirement for master plan is postcard first-class mail. We asked them to do certified. That way we have a record that people received or didn't receive. However, I just want to be clear, the next step, if it gets that far, or when it goes to zoning, if it gets that far for special use permit, all of the notice by statute is required to be certified. So I'm hearing something here today. If you get future notice, certified mail, it could be related to the development, and you might want to, you know, if you didn't receive it, go pick it up so that you get your proper notice, because that is required by statute. Yes. If you're here, it kind of negates the fact that you didn't get the notice. It does. I understand that.
Folks,
The
please.
fact that people are present negates that they didn't receive notice. They are here.
No, no, they-
That, under,
Please, one person speaks.
all right, you know, I'll withhold my comment at that point because I'll accept what,
But I'll say that I'm glad you heard about it either through word of mouth or seeing the paper, and we can look at the process, but yeah, other than the master plan, understand that all notification would be done via certified mail. That's not our choice, that's by statute. All right, so everybody give me that, and I realize it may have an inconvenience because it's certified on socket rather than, that there's nothing to do about that either. All right? Thank you. There you go.
Mike Phillips, 289 Buxton Street. Just a couple of things. The intersection of Wood Buxton Street has quite a vertical curve coming up out of this property, and where it intersects with Scott Farm Road, it's a difficult vertical situation going on. Now, I know this is only master plan, and I don't know how much detailed grading has been done at this point, but that needs to really be looked at. Coming up out of that driveway is it's a difficult turn, and its visibility is poor coming up over the rise, so that really has to be looked at. Just a suggestion for preliminary plan, when first-class mail goes out, or certified mail, why don't you just send first class as well? Just a letter, so that everyone gets it. And
no, we could request the applicant to send both. That's not a problem. It's a good suggestion.
thank you.
We haven't, as he stated, we haven't done any engineering of that, but we will take that comment into consideration. And when we get to engineering, sightline distance is definitely a concern, so that's something we will look at.
Relative to the sidewalk issue, perhaps they might consider doing a sidewalk in the interior loop road if you're going to have visitor parking in there. I'm a planner myself. My wife's a planner. We work in local towns, and we do that a lot with sidewalks in interior developments like this, where it's not connecting out to a system of sidewalks in a street like this, a two-rod road. So, just a suggestion.
I just have another concern with the precedent that this can set with the amount of land that a lot of people in this room own on Buxton Street, with already an existing structure on it, if that were to open up more developments along the road. Yeah, there's been precedents set in the past regarding frontage and everything, so now the.
Oh, I see. You're saying in adherence to regulation.
Yeah.
Yes.
My name is Kelly. I live on Wilkes Ave, which is on the opposite side, right, Scott, according to the map. Yeah, up there.
I'm sorry. What's your address?
78 Wilkes Ave.
Okay, thank you.
I just had a question regarding the subdivision requiring two means of public street access and you need to request a waiver for that. I was looking at the map. Does that have anything to do with the future connection to Belcher Ave? Would that be the second street access?
We're not, in our proposed development, we're not proposing two means of access. We're trying to keep this a compact development in that central area, to answer that question. That's correct, yeah, that was brought up tonight.
I'm Wayne LaFave. I live at 284 Buxton Street. I'm a second abutter that I probably own about 1,300 feet against that property. In this zone, for this hill that's going down into that wetlands, my land all abuts this. This is all my property here, and it comes back up to Buxton. I want to know how they're going to control the water coming off of that into that property, which is going to go into mine eventually, which is going to go into Jason's property and Fernandez's property. How they're going to control that.
So part of the design phase for DEM is we have to show no increase to discharge points, and we analyze where the water goes today, and then we have to engineer the site and show no impact to the surrounding areas. The point the abutter made is definitely a great point, and one of the things we do is we're not going to discharge onto his property. So even if there's existing flow that goes towards his property today, we're not going to put a pond there and keep water going that way. We're going to look at, we might even oversize a pond and discharge the water to another spot, such as the pond or the wetland or something like that. At the end of the day, it's still a burden's on us to show a reduction in stormwater flow to these wetland areas, but we're not going to, direct discharge to an abutting property because his point is very valid. If he ever wanted to develop his property, we're going to create an issue for him and any other downstream abutters to his property.
Stacy Murphy, 4 Buxton. I am further down. Part of my land is in the North Smithfield, some is in Barterville. We actually had land next to us years ago that was due to be developed, and I went through this process years and years and years ago. My question here is, and we're going to talk about the elephant in the room that some people probably don't want to bring up, is I was just reading up, what is the requirements now for 50% to be affordable housing? I'm all for it. And I have 2 concerns. One being I'm a mom, and that street has already gotten so busy. People go flying down that street. And when I moved there in 1979, okay? It was much rural. I mean, the housing went next door, across the street, whatever. It's now turned into the Indy 500 as it is. Where my land is, it would go from North Smithfield. The minute it hit Barterville, it was a dirt road. I actually had a car flip over into my front yard as a kid. And they ended up covered in glass and ambulances and whatever. They still drive like the Indy 500. My concern is, now you're talking about doing a development like this with this many houses, and now you're saying on top of it, and now this is, sir, this is directed to you. Are you saying that there's going to be this here? Direct your comments here. So there's this many, how many units are we talking? 12 units. Now, on top of that, are we talking about another development, apartment house on top of it, or just 12 development? And they're saying for it to be 50% to be low income. Affordable, sorry. Why at 50% is my question. It's required now? I thought it was required 10%. 10%. Yeah.
It's not 10%.
Well, it says right in your thing, 10%.
Mr. Chairman, 10% is the goal for all communities in the state of Rhode Island. There are different standards in North Smithfield depending on the type of development you're going to build. It's 20% in some types of development, anything over 6 units. But in this particular instance, if it's duplex units, for whatever reason, if it's duplex units in a conservation development, the regulation, I believe it's 6.20.3A3, requires that one of the units be LMI, low to moderate income. It's in the regulation, specifically.
Because it's a duplex.
Yeah.
So precedent being set now, we had single-family homes all the way up and down this very old road, and now we're going to put duplexes in. Where you have, I know for a fact, I'm on we don't even have a septic system down here. Now we're building separate septics, separate wells. What happens if, God forbid, there's a fire, okay? Those roads are not wide enough. There is not enough water. We don't have the best water system on that area. I mean, yes, watershed. I work at a farm where they had to go 600 feet down to get a pliable well. There's tons and tons of ledge back there. There are wetlands, but that doesn't dictate that there's enough water. If you have a development that's that close together now, in the middle of a woods, and one of them catches on fire, how do we sustain that? How do we stop that from spreading everywhere? We had a God knows what happened down the road on Providence Pike, where you had a little tiny brush fire, and it engulfed a house. How fast? Very quickly. So these are the concerns that the neighborhood has, and I didn't want to be the one to get up here and go, why are we now? And again, everybody deserves to have affordable housing. They really do. But this neighborhood, this small rural road, might not be the ideal idea for something like that. And it's not exactly close to a public access. That's almost halfway down. That's not exactly a small road. So it's right in the middle of nowhere in beautiful farmland. What happens to the farmland? I am a farmer, born and raised, train horses, train Providence police horses. This is what I do. I've ridden through all the fields and all those. Scott's property has beautiful fields, the McPherson's, beautiful, beautiful trails. What happened to keeping rural land? To me, it's sad. The amount of, to see that area being destroyed now to put in more housing, and not single homes, duplexes. To me, it's just not the right area for it. And again, it's not, you're doing a rural area with now duplexes, which is going to bring in now twice the amount of traffic when you drive down Buxton Street, which inevitably you have to drive down Buxton Street to get to this development. People already drive very fast. Now it's going to get even scarier with even more houses.
You raise a number of points.
Mm-hmm.
And these are points, and some of these, even though we're at master plan,
Yep.
so much of what you said would be covered would move on
Mm-hmm.
to preliminary. They have to do a traffic study.
Mm-hmm.
They have to hit all these points.
Yes.
It's, just even as the gentleman said about the runoff, they don't have to show it now how they're going to do it,
Mm-hmm.
but they do have to comply with requirements.
Okay.
And so all these, the same as having water for fire,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to have to show how they have that water.
I mean, my other thing is like, yeah.
It has to be approved by the fire chief.
Mm-hmm.
Right, the plan has to be, when it comes to that. So all these things, I think, are addressed in the normal planning process we follow.
And everyone will be notified, so we can all basically come down again and basically restate our concerns.
This is just the first meeting.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
There's preliminaries, and then there's the final.
Mm-hmm.
So each step of the way is public hearing.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
And we have a second from Mr. Key. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Public hearing is closed at 8:11. Okay. Thank you all for your comments, all of those who've taken as a result. The board.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for Mr. Russo.
They can stay and listen.
Well, no, I was just waiting for them to be quiet so we could proceed.
Oh, I'm good.
No, no, that's all I'm waiting for.
Okay.
That's why I was asking if we need to take a brief moment for folks to have their,
If you do have conversation, please have it outside. Yeah, we're still talking about this project. But of course, you're welcome to stay and listen to all that.
Yes. Mr. Russo, as you know, this board is charged with health, safety, and welfare of the residents. In your professional opinion, would pedestrians be more likely to be hit by an automobile walking in the street as opposed to walking on a sidewalk?
I mean, walking on a sidewalk is safer.
Is safer?
Yeah, I mean.
Thank you.
Okay. All right.
And the comment that Mr. Phillips made, I do think that's a fair comment, and if sidewalks were requested interior to the site, I think that's fair. It's just going through the wetland and out to no connection point was kind of a concern for that request.
Okay. Thank you. Who else?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes? Oh, okay.
obviously, there's going to be children in this development, and they'd be walking to the school bus all the way out to Buxton Street. So that's some of the rationale where I feel sidewalks are essential. Okay?
It's a fair comment also.
And the other issue, which the last lady that spoke didn't seem to understand perhaps, is that the duplexes still require a special use permit from zoning. Is that correct?
That's correct, and we are proposing them as 3-bedroom units, so I mean, in theory, if you did normal houses, you could do more bedrooms, which could have more cars.
I think it's important for the audience to
Yeah,
realize
we still have
it's
to
a
go
big
to
hurdle
zoning for
before
a special
zoning.
use permit. That is correct. Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Mr. Keene?
Yes, first of all, I want to thank everybody that testified today and provided a lot of great questions and information. I think it was very, very useful. In general, my personal feeling about curbs and sidewalks is one of the things we're trying to, I think the reasons that people move to North Smithfield or remain in North Smithfield is the character of the town. The rural character and the rural areas is something that we'd like to preserve. I don't think that putting curbs on rural streets is maintaining a rural character. And so, in general, I have an issue with a project like this that coming off of a street with no sidewalks or curbs, requiring curbs on a street. So that's just my general feeling about that. I agree that I think that was a great idea about putting requiring sidewalks on the internal part. I'm not sold on sidewalks all the way out to the street yet. Yeah, I'm very big on maintaining the rural character of the town, but on the other hand, we also have to consider the property owners' rights to develop property. I hate to see it, believe me. I've lived in town my whole life. My family's been here for generations, and I've watched our forests and open spaces dwindle away bit by bit. I feel your pain, believe me. But we do have to consider the rights of property owners and try to mitigate development where we can, I feel, but and trying to find a sweet spot that maybe nobody's happy with, but that's fair for everybody. So anyway,
Could I just interject on one of the things that you just brought up?
Sure.
I'd just like to interject on that because it also touches to what one of the residents brought up. In terms of the duplex and all that, and how this conflicts, or developing it at all, but the duplexes conflicts with the current makeup of that area. What is the visibility like? Because it is on its own road. So what would be the visibility of this group of six units from Buxton Street? And I don't know if there's another street on the other side. If it is, it's probably in Massachusetts, but,
You would have those two wetlands that we couldn't touch. So, I mean, anything within that buffer would have to remain.
But I'm just saying, what is the distance again from Buxton to the loop?
I can tell you
So
approximately.
that was one that's more than 600, right? Yeah. And it's an upslope?
It's probably about 600 feet just to get through that wetland area.
Right.
So
And
you're
it's-
gonna have, those units are probably set back, probably about 1,000 feet.
And it's
give or
it's
take.
an upward slope?
It goes down into that wetland in the beginning
right,
and
so-
then kind of back up, but it's not huge incline, so it's not like sitting up too high or anything like that. So it would be pretty well buffered back there.
Okay.
Visibility from the road, it'd be really hard to see. I mean,
Yep.
maybe in the winter when all the leaves are down, maybe you get a shot in there, but it'd be pretty well buffered.
Okay. I would just recommend that be something to consider. I don't know what you're going to do for elevations and stuff, but taking into consideration, we've heard it multiple times, I think it would be good to know what it's going to look like. What are people actually going to see?
Yeah, we can put that in the landscape plan. We've had landscape architects do cross-sectional views. If there's a concern from the roadway or a budding property, we've done that before.
Okay. Sorry, go ahead, Mr. Kane.
Yes, I was wondering if we could do a site survey?
I was bring over a site walk.
Site walk.
Yeah, we're not surveyors. I'm not even going to bring a compass, So, but yeah, I think this is a project that a site walk, a site visit would be appropriate for. Enjoy some of that spring weather over there. Anything else for
Yeah, I got a list.
Mr. Why am I not surprised? Mr. Porter?
So, while I was reviewing this application as a conservation development, the open space has always piqued my interest a little bit here. And we're required as a planning board to approve the use of that open space. And since you're putting it on the southerly side of this development here, I'm wondering, and will likely be requesting, how will the public be accessing that open space? One of the things that as Mr. Lenz had brought up, is that the folks around Buxton Street have walked through each other's properties, but now with that open space, I see the need for some sort of easement from the start of Buxton Road all the way back to that open space. So whether it be a trail system or a combination of sidewalks and a trail system that goes through the property, I think we need to see some more thought about how that open space is going to be benefiting the town. I also agree with Mr. Lenz's point about deeding the open space to the town and the land trust. They've done a great job of maintaining everything thus far, and don't give me any doubt that they would still do the same. I am also not in favor of providing the waiver of sidewalks specifically for that reason for folks either from Scott Farm, Buxton Street, or any other place in town as they walk down Buxton Street, understanding that it's an Indy 500, but I would still like to see some public access to be able to go through there. This is the architect coming out in me. I have some concern of separation between buildings 4 and the groupings of 5 and 6 and building 7. I just want to make sure that if this gets approved and goes forward, that there's the appropriate fire rating between buildings, as the concern of fires has been brought up tonight. I'm also, going back to the open space, I also had a question if there's going to be a level of regrading, understanding that we have a certain level of setbacks from the wetlands. We have in town our regulations call that none of the gravel or materials may be removed from site. It just has to be relocated. How that's going to be playing out, that's something I'm going to be looking at closely. The planner has also brought out visitor parking, so would certainly like to see where that might flush out. Both visitors for the duplex units themselves, but also for people that might be accessing that open space. I know over at Booth Pond, up in Dowling Village, there is a small parking area for the public to be able to walk the paths and go from there. And then that was about it. I'm also in agreement with the, it sounds like you've already gotten the approval from DEM to go 30 feet wide through that wetlands.
It's
Previously.
Previously, yeah.
So I would, encourage the use of making sure that we can maintain that 24 feet plus sidewalk. So then that way, you're still within that 30 feet that was previously approved.
That previous approval is basically not valid anymore. So what
Okay.
happens is when we submit a new application to DM, they'll review it as a new application.
Okay.
I've had similar instances like this where it's more than likely they're going to review it as an application alter. There is a chance they push back on us with that, but obviously if the town is requesting that, that's what we'll have to submit to them, and we'll have to work with DM on that.
Okay. I would like to see that happen. And it sounds like I'm in agreement with Dr. Benoit about keeping the sidewalks and not being in favor of that waiver. The excess of 600 feet waiver, they're going to be privately taking care of this situation here. The town's not going to be, so.
Right.
And then I also, based on comments that I heard this evening as well, I know the stone wall has been brought up. We're always looking to make sure we mark that appropriately on our surveys and also call for the appropriate protections of them. Again, the land trust in town should be, I want to add that the NS Land Trust and town should be noted as the beneficiaries or for the open space, and then also add the traffic study to the list of stipulations that we'd like to see.
Okay.
And then I'm going to make one amendment to the number 13 that says and remediate invasive species. Just because you had said that the landscape architect could come up with some plans on that.
I'm not an expert in it. I've seen them come up with ideas and
Yep.
thoughts.
So
I know it's a challenge.
we'll put that into the landscape architect's hands. That's it for my comments.
All right. Thanks. Ms. Brandola, did you have anything? Okay. I'll just reiterate a few things. I'm also, I think, Dr. Benoit's comments and then Jeff's additional talk about access to open space further supports the need for sidewalks, because now that 600-foot road and kids walking it in the winter or whatever to get to the school bus is one thing, but now you've got other traffic on there that they'll be using, because I'm guessing that access to the open space may be off that. So I would not be in favor of the waiver. I know you haven't done your formal DEM work yet, but I don't know how the process would work, but we'd like to make sure that they specifically, in their findings, specifically address the intermittent stream and the vernal pool.
Yep.
And so that we're comfortable that was researched. We already talked about the visibility from Scott Farm Road. You'll address that. We are going to add the stipulation of doing the postcard to the certified notification.
It'd be first-class mail. First-class mail.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
I just have one question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
For Mr. Porter. The sidewalk out to Buxton Street, I'm assuming it's on one side, not on both sides?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
I just want to
Yep.
clarify that.
Nope, thank you for clarifying that.
And one other thing, Mr. Chairman, with regard to the landscape architecture and I think you were heading in that direction and maybe even mentioned that. Mr. Porter asked to amend stipulation 13 regarding the invasive species. And may I suggest that you also include a view shed analysis from Buxton Street and abutting properties?
Yep, absolutely. Because I think that may solve some of the visibility concerns. Although the site visit will go a long way for us to actually see what the sight lines are, because I guess the land does undulate a little bit, but, you know, and we would still be seeing it at a time with minimal foliage. So it'd be more visible. So let's see, did that, you covered, and you said basically it's a new survey on the road width, so if they may give you more. So you're gonna show them the whole plan for the road, including a sidewalk, and then
DM.
see what they say for,
Yeah, DM's new regulations, this might be more beneficial to the town in general. When you submit an application now, they actually require you to send in the master plan, like approval from the
Oh.
town. So, I mean, you know, they want to see that we've made effort to ask for waivers to reduce this stuff, but they do get or request a copy for that master plan approval. There was a lot of applications going in before with no master plan approval before that was
Oh.
given. So it clarifies on their end if they have a master plan or not.
right.
Well, the project
Well,
has
that way they're not putting their effort in until it's really needed.
I think that was the point of it, yep.
Yep. Okay. That. Hang on, I had a couple other comments.
Mr. Chairman?
Hey. Okay, was it on mine?
There was one other point brought up that we haven't talked about yet. That was the compost pile removal.
Oh, yes. So that would just be a stipulation that compost pile, and to look at Mr. Lenz's recommendations for how to minimize the discomfort it will cause. So I'll also bring up some of the other things that came up. Given the concern about ledge and water supply and all that, what level of perk test are you going to do? Like, how many sites?
I know the applicants had some work done in the past with that, but we haven't really dived into that type of engineering detail at this point.
Okay.
But, you know, obviously that is something we're going to be required to do as
Yeah.
part of the development process.
Right, I mean, you need to make sure, each unit has to be able to have septic and
Correct.
water and all that.
Yeah,
so-
we'll be required to get a site suitability from DM for this, so
Right.
before we come back to the town for preliminary, DM would have to review the testing that we did in the field. They'll have somebody from DM out there inspecting the test holes. Then we'll have to make an application to them for what's called a site suitability application that proves that it can sustain that many septics. So that's part of the process before we came back at the preliminary level with the town and part of the engineering.
I think we can, we'll get a better feel for the stone wall issue also with the site visit. So, what was that last one? There was a, so the last topic for me to bring up is the creatively shaped lot on the southwestern side. And do we have a better drawing here to show that lot?
It's right there, you should buy it.
Right there. Can we, there we go, okay. So is it the blue line?
The blue line would be the property line.
Gotcha.
The proposed
Okay.
property line, the dash line is the setbacks. But again, I mean, it's a density plan. You could put, in theory, obviously it's not ideal layout, but you could put a house and you could have a septic 500 feet from a house. I mean, you could have a well 500 feet from a house. I mean, so it's an odd shaped lot, but, you know, it could fit a house and a septic and a well if you had to had to do it.
Right. I don't know. How does everyone feel about that? Mr. Carrillo, do you have an opinion on that?
Well, it's a yield plan. It's not an optimum lot, is correct. It would be a conforming lot with regard to zoning, and it's a buildable lot. I would say that if you take the upland, the area of upland, and you divide it by the required area for the zone, which is 65,000 square feet per lot, I think the calculation comes out to 14 lots, although you could not do a 14-lot layout there.
Right.
But the upland would yield 14 lots according to zoning. So, you know, do we want to get into a back and forth about having someone virtually design a conventional subdivision in order to accomplish a conservation development?
Right.
That's not the intent of the ordinance. The intent is to show how much they could reasonably yield if it was a conventional subdivision, and then in order to protect the environmentally sensitive areas, you allow them to condense that development. Some communities it's called a cluster. Here it's called a conservation development. Most communities don't allow the option of having a condo versus smaller lot sizes surrounded by open space, but this ordinance does allow that. So I think it's reasonable what they're requesting. It's really up to the board whether you decide, looking at that plan, if that is reasonable.
Well, I mean, at this point, there's still, it's only master, so they may learn stuff as you go through your water. You're testing for water and septic, that you have to change the shape of things, right? If you have to move some units and all that kind of stuff.
Sure. Yeah,
And that's going to change the shape of the lot, so I guess it's probably something that can wait for a later date when it's more firm.
Okay.
All right. So that's all I have. So we all good? So could you give us the new and improved list of stipulations?
Would you like to go through the full list of 15 plus
No,
the 3 that we added?
just note any changes on the original 15.
Okay, so we'll start with number 13. We're requiring a landscape plan designed by a Rhode Island registered landscape architect, who shall include plans to remediate invasive species, and include view sheds from Buxton Street to Buddy Properties. And I'm going to go over to, we'll be requiring the applicant to perform a traffic and site vision analysis on Buxton Street in proximity to the entrance. Sidewalk, the developer shall install sidewalks along the interior ring road and down one side of the access road. I'm not sure what to do with the compost situation. I guess we could have them develop the applicant look into plans and processes for remediating or limiting the duration of the removal and smell of the compost.
And then that would be, so that's basically saying they have to have a plan for it.
Plan.
Right. Okay. But it's a plan that they would commit to doing, to executing.
Correct.
Okay, got it.
I think that preliminary, that might be a plan.
Yeah.
That gets presented. I don't know if the landscape architect would have any engineer or I'm not really sure how you resolve
Right.
smell and removing the compost, but I think it's more of a duration issue. I mean, I spoke to one of the residents who happens to be here today on that, and we have
Yeah.
understanding as to what
Yeah.
the concern is.
Yeah, so the stipulation is for the plan today, and then if it gets to preliminary, then it becomes a stipulation for execution. Got it. Okay. And the first-class mailing?
You want to make that stipulation sure?
Yes. It would be a stipulation for all public notification, not just for, yeah, moving forward, exactly.
Could we make it,
Do we need to have something related to access to open space?
Well, I was going to start with the conservation easement, number 5. Could we just take out "or other similar land preservation group" and just have it be the land trust?
If that's the board's prerogative, the reason I word it that way is because sometimes I've dealt with, maybe not in the North Smithfield Land Trust, but other land trusts who sometimes say, we don't want it.
Oh,
Number 5.
I can read that. It says the proposed conservation areas shall be deed restricted in perpetuity with a conservation easement to the Town of North Smithfield Conservation Commission, Land Trust, or other similar land preservation group.
Just Town of North Smithfield.
I just want to comment on that. The applicant, I think by your regs should have at least a chance to, the last part, other similar land preservation group. If he has an idea with that, that's some type of agricultural use, shouldn't that, if he, like he's talking about like a butterfly farm on that property or something to that effect.
I see what you're saying.
Or utilizing the property.
so leave it open to a.
Or something. It's,
to another use.
I think
Yep.
he should have the right, based on the regulations, to present that at the next level, and, at the preliminary level, that can be discussed
Seems
further.
reasonable.
No, I believe I read it that the planning board can determine who is going to be,
Oh, we can, it's whether we want to give the applicant some flexibility. And
Or at least give us the option to preliminary to come up with that.
To
And if-
propose,
yeah,
to propose
it.
another,
Yeah, because right
ultimately
now
it's
we
up-
don't have
yeah,
anything
Right.
definite.
All right.
I don't see any reason in
All right.
not granting some flexibility.
Yeah, I like the town and the land trust jointly. But I'm willing to
Well, but it would be, but I think what we're talking about is the town and someone else jointly,
Yes.
which may not be the land trust if we approve of, they find someone else and they approve it. It's still, the town will still be part of it,
I'll keep an open mind.
yeah. So,
as well.
Thank
Yep.
Okay. Never mind then.
What about in stipulations, access to open space? Do we need to put something in there?
Mark, do you think we need to have a stipulation for that? Because we have the easement listed in number 5, do we have to say something more specifically about access to the open space?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So then I'd like to make sure that we have that as a stipulation, that there is a public access easement to the open space on the southerly side.
Which includes a small parking area, yeah. Mhm.
Perfect.
Okay. Hey,
You don't want to jump on the
we
protections
got
for the
everything?
stone wall?
Oh, I'm definitely going to. I want
Okay.
to see it first.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. All right, so I think we have our stipulations. How does the court feel? How does the board feel about approval master plan as with the stipulations?
Before we get to that, just Mr. Porter brought up a good point, but in regards to the stone wall, I'm not gonna jump on that right now, but it is a concern that I share as well. So until I see it, I'm not going to make any judgments, but
That's,
protection of stone walls and maybe moving them or something if required, that may be a requirement.
Yeah, we'd gather all those with the final actual survey of the property, and yeah, we'd be happy to work around those.
Yep, okay.
I think the stone wall that has been raised is going to be in the conservation area and within the conservation easement. It's on that,
Well, the line
Southerly
looked
side.
close to the houses that,
well, the houses, this is just a conventional yield plan. Those houses are not going to be
no,
built.
no, no, but the loop,
Yeah,
that was just, that's just conceptual, it's not.
Right.
Okay, fine,
yeah.
yeah. Great, thanks.
Okay. So now can we, motion to approve master plan? Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to propose, I'd like to move that we approve the master plan with the stipulations that were laid out, was it 15?
No, it's more than that.
How many stipulations? 19, with the 19 stipulations.
We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Order, you have a bunch of waiver requests before you. Do you act on those prior to your overall decision, or?
We usually act on them.
Wrapped into that decision?
No, after. Yep.
Mr. Chairman, the waiver requests that are here, you're not eliminating sidewalks. So that waiver is no longer necessary.
Right.
The road in excess of 600 feet is for a cul-de-sac road. I believe the board has determined that the loop road is not the cul-de-sac. It's
Right.
not a dead end or cul-de-sac road, it's a loop road.
Right.
So I'm not sure that that waiver is necessary. The 22 feet of pavement certainly is necessary, and the board would need to act on that. However, I believe you should stipulate, and we are stipulating, that it be a minimum of 24 feet.
That's in our stipulations, correct?
Correct. And that the other waiver, that the other two waivers that were mentioned, one is 2 means of access and the other is not to have a private roadway, are not necessary because it is a condo development. It is not a public, it's not a development related to town roads or a conventional subdivision. So that, it's a different type of development. I think if the engineer would like to speak, that they were making those requests out of an abundance of caution, and that because it's a condominium development, these waivers would be required for a conventional subdivision.
Right. We good with that? Okay.
What about not having enough frontage?
I can address the frontage, Chairman. Because it's a condominium development, the frontage is the frontage required for the full lot. In this particular zoning district, the minimum frontage requirement is 200 feet. The lot has in excess of 200 feet. If it was going to be a conventional subdivision, as shown on this plan, the yield plan, the 200-foot frontage would have to be required for each and every one of those lots on the yield plan.
Right.
But because it's a private road, and it's going to be a condominium-style development, only the full lot that's being developed needs to have the appropriate frontage.
Gotcha. Thank you. So we have a motion on the table. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Dr. Benoit. So roll call vote, and this is a vote for approval. Dr. Benoit?
Yes.
Ms. Marandola? Mr. Porter?
Yes.
Mr. Keane?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Should we, can we come up with our date for site visit now?
I would suggest that I could survey the board and we could contact the engineer and arrange that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
We could check to see when the board's available.
Okay.
That'll be a public site walk.
All
So
site
if it's-
visits
if
are
it's-
because,
if the full board is going, it will be a
yeah, as
formal
soon as,
meeting.
if we have at least 3 people, it's a public meeting, so. So that's another notice to the residents, right? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if it's a full board meeting, the public is also invited, correct?
I think as long as it's a quorum, yeah.
Yes.
So- Yeah, exactly. And so we expect to have a quorum so the town, people will be notified of that. Okay, thank you very much. Let me go back to the agenda. Oh, thank you. Okay. Yeah, and we, take a minute for the shift change.
That's crazy.
That was fun.
How are you? Good. Good.
Just one thing, when they go for the sidewalk, take note of on the open space, you've got a ticking time bomb with dead ash trees that are right up against, they're gonna be a problem. They've been dead for 4 years.
Oh, really?
Standing.
Yeah, yeah.
So we're gonna be assuming that responsibility, so have them cut those things down before you do it.
It's next.
No, I think he's taking that, that's coming out. It's coming out? Yeah. Yeah, so there is I guess there's an access to this that's gonna have to come off from here. So they're gonna have to work that out with regards to easement wise, but yeah, that's gonna go. Everything's gonna go. The only thing that's gonna be here is this road and this.
And you were there the
Everything
other
else is
night, right?
But in the conservation, this is all part of the open space
This
law?
is going, so what's gonna happen is we're gonna have two conservation areas. This is gonna be a conservation area here, and that is.
Yeah.
So this is gonna be the only area.
Thank you all for going.
Excuse me, folks. We're trying to conduct the meeting, so if you're going to be discussing what has just happened, can you please do that outside? Thank you. Not to be rude, but we're trying to move this along.
All right, next item on the agenda, major land development preliminary approval for Islander Solar, 850 Iron Mine Road, Assessor's Plat 16, Assessor's Lots 18 and 19, applicant Islander Solar LLC. Any summary for us, Mr. Carullo?
Mr. Chairman, this is a development that was before the planning board previously and was actually denied by the board. Applicant filed an appeal to the zoning board. The zoning board reversed the planning board's decision. The applicant then proceeded to zoning board for special use permit and dimensional variances related to the development. The applicant is back here this evening at preliminary, looking for a preliminary approval, and they are pretty much compliant with the zoning board's decision. There's several stipulations that we've attached here, and I think I have been in contact with the applicant, and I believe the applicant was trying to work with the abutters with regard to some landscaping and view sheds, and I hope that issue gets addressed this evening.
Okay, thank you.
Could I just, Mark, you said they pretty much comply.
No, they comply with it. Well, it's gonna, so the zone, when this project came to the planning board, we listed several dimensional variances that were requested, that I thought needed to be requested. The applicant agreed to submit for those, didn't necessarily agree that they were necessary, went to the zoning board, presented each and every one to the zoning board, made a case for or against them, and some of those waivers that we believe were necessary were determined by the zoning board not to be necessary.
Thank you.
Okay.
Could I just ask a question? So we denied the application when it came before us for certain.
For master, yep.
For certain reasons. The zoning board.
Acting as the
appeal board. So does that mean we cannot disapprove it again? Is that the?
No. Go ahead.
What?
He said it has master plan approval.
Has master plan approval?
Right.
Doesn't mean you can't deny it, but in order for you to deny the project, you would have to have legal reason to deny it. And it can't be that it's not compliant with the comprehensive plan because we determined that it was.
The zoning board determined that it was.
The zoning board determined that it was, and it cannot be denied for dimensional variances and relief that the zoning board has already authorized.
Yeah, they've granted, right.
And it can't be denied because it requires any type of special use permit. The zoning board granted the special use permit. So your window of denial has to be some sort of, be related to detriment to the public health, safety, and welfare. You'd have to have evidence to support it.
Well, or other ways in which not compliant with ordinance and all that. 'Cause or if there are other ways in which they're not compliant with, not compliant with the appropriate ordinances.
Way that they may not be compliant, that
Right. That's what I mean. It's, yeah, it's the normal stuff. I know what you're saying, though. Right, right.
So I think a lot of those issues have been brought up, and I'm assuming, you know, from what I can tell, they've all been addressed.
Okay, but that's what you're saying, that's what you're going to present today, that's, yeah, great. Great, okay, thank you. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, my name is Kelly Morris Salvatore. I represent Islander Solar. I think you all did a great job of introducing the project. For the record, I just want to go through the required findings that that we're asking you to make tonight. And again, it's for the record, we've already talked about them, but relating to the required finding of consistency with the comprehensive plan, I just want to remind you, the Zoning Board of Appeals made the finding that it's consistent. We also have a report submitted at master plan stage by Edward Pimentel that you saw. And then, of course, you have the planner's recommendation that it's also consistent with the comprehensive plan. Relating to conformance with the zoning ordinance, as you heard tonight, we asked for every single dimensional variance that the planner asked us to address. The zoning board made certain findings that perhaps some of them really weren't needed, and then on all of the other ones that we asked for that were actually required, they granted such relief. They also granted us the special use permit that's required for this project. With regard to the no significant environmental factors, impacts, that's what we're here tonight for. So when we talk about what you're focusing in tonight on, that's what we're here for. The required finding regarding subdivision, this is not a subdivision, so that does not apply. And with regard to the required finding about adequate physical access, there is an easement through the front property owned by the Authiers. That's an easement that's in place. There is absolutely adequate physical access. I also want to state for the record that we have reviewed the planner's recommendation as well as the recommended conditions. We have no objection to any of the recommended conditions of approval. So tonight with me is Jason Gold, who is the project engineer. He was the project engineer also for master plan. The master plan that you reviewed actually contained a lot of engineering. I noticed that there's one member present who was not present, the rest of you were. So we're going to give a summary of the engineering details that you've already seen, just for the benefit of the member who was not present. But again, we're focused on, really focused tonight on landscaping, screening, things that you had concerns about at master plan that we think we've addressed appropriately. So I think really as an introduction, that's about it. I'm going to ask Mr. Gold to present the plans to you, and if you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer. Mr. Chairman, do you accept engineers as experts? Do you qualify engineers as experts? Just for the record.
Ask that for.
It sounds like you
it
don't.
depends on
That's fine.
On the topic.
Yeah, some planning boards will swear, ask for an engineer's credentials,
Yeah.
swear them in as an expert.
Yeah, we have never done that.
That's if you do, I wanted to make sure we check that box.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you. Yeah, yeah.
Good evening. My name is Jason Gold, professional engineer with TRC, formerly ESS. So yeah, I think what I'll do is I'll start with what's changed since you saw them last time, and then I'll go back and just kind of go through that brief overview of what I've already presented. If you don't mind going to page 7. So since you've seen this last time, what's changed is we added some landscaping. So originally we were looking for relief of landscaping all around. We were just going to do the existing vegetation around the entire site. And you had brought up some concerns, well, the house on lot 18, even though they're part of the applicant, maybe that house will sell or whatever. So
right.
You wanted some landscaping there, and then off to the northeast as well. So there is some landscape it's blurry, but landscape screen is that different hatch along the north boundary, and then it wraps around a little bit around the eastern side. We're still planning on keeping the existing woods. You know, like we talked about last time, there's no reason to cut down trees to plant more trees. But the landscape architect prepared a plan to supplement those woods. So there's trees specified, planting specified. So what they would do is, you know, in the field, determine where those gaps are and plant the trees within that area. What we submitted was proposing a minimum width of 15 feet within that shaded area to screen, to plant those supplemental plantings. One of the stipulations in the planner's report was to widen that from 15 feet to 20 feet, and that's fine. We don't have any problem with that. We can do that in a master plan. Another question that came up was a photo simulation from the eastern abutters property to be submitted within by final plan. So we've been out there. We took pictures. I think it was last week. We took photos from his yard. So we're working on those photo simulations now. So we'll have that for final plan submission.
On the landscape plan, on
Yes.
the additional trees and stuff, those are all going to be consistent with the current mix of trees or bushes that are out there?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It'll be compatible. It won't be this. It won't necessarily be the same as what's out there because we want it to be evergreen, right? A lot of what's out there now isn't evergreen.
Yes.
So it won't necessarily be more of the same, but it'll be compatible.
Gotcha. Okay.
So that's really all that's changed, but now I can go through and do just a quick little review, just to kind of get you up to speed. So if you can go to page, let's start on page 4. That's the overview. Yeah, that's a good one. So the project is actually, it's 2 lots. The solar array is on the lower lot, which is lot 19. But that's landlocked. So the access is through lot 18. So it's from Iron Mine Hill Road through lot 18 to the property. It's the array itself is 5.5 acres. The fence is 6 acres, and that's what's allowed by the zoning ordinance. And that accounts for only 27% of the lot. The limits of disturbance, which includes the shade tree, the road, the detention basins, it's really the whole thing. That's 12.1 acres. The ordinance requires us to identify trees that are greater than 20 inches DBH that will be removed, and there are none. All the yard setbacks are met. The panel setback are met everywhere except for the north, and that's one of the zoning variances that Kelly had mentioned. The stormwater. Yeah.
I just want to interrupt.
Yeah.
Tell them why we asked for that variance, because it was talked about last.
Yeah, that's fine. So the variance is the setback to the arrays from the property line, from the northern property line. So that property's, kind of part of this project. And what we did is the southern area is very steep. It's very steep slopes, very rocky. Disturbing that would have caused some erosion control concerns. And so what we did is we shifted it north, and that came up out of pre-app discussions here with the planning board. So we shifted that north a little bit, so that's within the 100-foot. So that's why we requested that variance. There's 3 stormwater detention basins. They're the hatched areas, one on each side and one in the middle. Thank you. Those will attenuate stormwater as well as provide water quality treatment. And there's a swale along the road, which will do the same as well. Erosion control plans have been submitted. That's part of the plan set, as well as this erosion sediment control plan and operation and maintenance plan. Those are the high points. Happy to take any questions.
I had a question on the easement for the road.
Yes.
Is that on the deed, or does it have a time limit, or how is that set up?
I believe it's a lease, but I'll let you answer that question.
And I may have referred to it as an easement, and I apologize, but it's actually a lease between the parties, and it's part of the submission. You have it in your record.
Oh.
It's a tenant landlord agreement.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, So, and that's in place right now.
Right, I understand. That's why, well, that was my thing, is, you know,
Yeah.
how long does it last, and all that, but it's a tenant lease, and therefore
Yeah.
it lasts until, as long as it's needed.
They have an option to renew.
Right.
At a certain date, I can't remember.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Public hearing?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to put one question on the record for you.
Oh.
Just in your experience as a professional engineer, will there be any significant negative environmental impacts from the proposed development?
No.
Okay. So we're ready for a public hearing?
Do you want to make the motion, Sharon?
Sure.
Make a motion, we open the public.
Motion to open the public hearing.
We have a second?
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Public hearing is open at 9:02. Anybody wishing to speak, please find your way up to the podium. Thank you.
We want to make you feel included.
I remember my first motion.
Those first motions, let's get it out of the way.
My name is Donald Croto. I'm the abutter on the east side, approximately 800 feet
Okay.
of my property.
Excuse me, what's your address?
752 Iron Mine Hill Road.
Thank you.
So we've had a lot of issues with this. For one thing, you know, our house is farther over that way, but there's a road, it's an existing road, it's probably 150 years old, and they were mining granite off our property that we use all the time, my grandkids, my kids, and it's within 10 feet of this property, that road. So, and our issues, again, is that, the fact that, another thing is, you know, it was your understanding that you could put telephone poles in from National Grid. That's not so. I've dealt with National Grid for 30 years. They do not mandate telephone poles on the property.
You're talking about for that roadway above there?
Right. Right. I've dealt with them for over 30 years. I was the director of plant operations for Landmark Medical Center and the rehab hospital here in North Smithfield, and dealt with them. I had my own rep. Never, ever did they say that you have to put poles in. They don't care, it's your property.
So,
And that was never voted on, or,
but I'm not sure what you're saying. So they're saying you must do everything underground, or what do you?
yes, that's the town.
Oh, okay.
The town says it needs to be that way, unless the electric company says that they can't, you know, they have to put it above
Right.
ground.
Yeah, that is in our regulations, isn't it?
I mean, I have a response when you're ready.
Yeah, okay. Well, yeah, why don't we take them one at a time, so go ahead. Sounds like you have multiple.
Speak into the microphone here.
If you don't mind, it picks up on the recording better.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
thank you.
That's one of the items that we received a variance for, right? Was it, Mr. Carullo? No. Or was it, they made a finding that we didn't need it?
So, in reading the zoning decision, the zoning board, based on representation and presentations to them about, I don't know who, I wasn't at the meeting, made a determination that they did not require to bury the wires because National Grid determined not to bury the wires.
So National Grid would have provided some documentation? to
We
say that
did.
they-
We provided that to the zoning board, Mr. Chairman.
No, but I mean, I'm saying if it's if it's a National Grid issue,
Yes.
then it would be for National Grid, and you know, so the point being made here is that they don't allow that. So if they were, for some reason, you know, sort of giving you a waiver, I would think they would have to document that.
That we provided them with a full copy of the, what's that called, Jason? System interconnection agreement.
Oh, so you provide them with the
Yes, we
National
did.
Grid document?
Yes.
Okay, that's
Yep.
what I meant. It
Yes,
is-
thank you.
okay, thank you.
Chairman, I'll, if you don't mind,
Yep,
this is out of
please.
the zoning decision. It said the zoning board specifically found that relief is not required for the following sections. And this is what I had mentioned earlier.
Right,
We were
right.
of the opinion, the zoning board was of a different opinion. Section 5.7.5K, the system impact study prepared by N-Grid RI Energy specifically calls for above-ground installation, and therefore relief is not required.
Okay.
Our opinion in the planning office was that it should be buried underground. The
Right.
zoning board made a determination that relief is not required based on the following, and that was what they said.
Okay. So that's, I mean, there's nothing, that's an official ruling from,
But it's my understanding that you submit the plans to National Grid first.
Right.
They review it and say, okay. So you could have submitted the plan with the underground wiring as required by our ordinance, and they still could have said, okay.
Well, respectfully, the zoning board made a determination that that relief is not required. We talked about it, we submitted the impact statement, that's what it's called, and they took that position, so that is no longer an issue.
Really wish David was here tonight.
I have the zoning decision.
Okay.
yeah, I don't question that the zoning decision
It
was
says
made.
the zoning board specifically found that the relief is not required from the following section.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, no,
5.7.5K.
Well, and I want to
No,
be
no,
clear, we
we're
would have
not-
asked for the variance.
we're
I mean,
not-
we did ask for the
They-
variance. So, and we made, I actually worked with Solicitor Archambault on the decision to make sure it was evident the things that we asked for and they did not address were because they made a specific finding that they
Right.
were not required.
Right,
So-
and
Okay.
not questioning that, because that's well documented. Mr. Porter's point was that at the very beginning of the process, the plan had to be submitted to National Grid first, and it could have been submitted in a way that was consistent with our regulations, but it was not.
Perhaps.
And in order to get National Grid to say, okay, and then the process happened, right? That was
Yeah,
your
that was my point. I'm not arguing the fact that this has already been granted relief. It's the fact that the original submission to National Grid may not have complied with what our regulations were. So I'm just trying to understand why it wasn't in the first place. I understand it's kind of nor here nor now situation, but, you know, we have it in our regulations for a reason to be underground, so, it's pointless, it's, again,
Well, it is a moot point.
it's a moot point,
Right,
but
that's right.
it's
Yeah.
frustrating that has come about, that's
Yeah.
all.
You had other points you wanted to make?
Yeah.
I would just, can I just add, you had talked about the road on your property?
Mhm.
And what was your concern about that? Because I'm assuming there can't be any disturbance of anything on your property from this development.
Right.
Right,
Yeah, but it's very close to
okay.
where all this is going on.
So it needs to be monitored closely to make sure that there is no disturbance, but otherwise,
But it's something we use all the time, and the kids, and when this goes up, it's gonna be very visible, especially since at this end, it's gonna be, what, 17 feet in the air? The panels,
is that high?
15?
I was gonna say most,
I remember it was really high. 15?
yeah, which is what, 15? Which is 15, and most of the ones
15
I've seen
feet.
are actually quite a bit shorter than that.
Your plans call for it to be no higher than 15.
Yeah, but they may not even be that. I mean, most of the grids I've seen,
Well,
the high end is only about 8 or 9 feet above.
On the last meeting, you stated that it would be 15 feet.
Right. Yeah, it has to be under 15. If you measure one that's over 15, they've got a problem they're gonna have to solve, right?
You know, and again, I'd like to know how much woods are gonna stay as a buffer to my property, especially since it's so close to that road that we're always.
Right. What is the distance that we're talking about, say, from the edge of the array, or the fence, I guess there's a fence around the array, right? To the property line, for example? I mean, it's just hard to tell from,
So it varies, yeah, obviously it varies quite a bit because of the.
well, no, I was
because
gonna
of
say,
the
just take the closest point there.
Yeah, so the panels themselves are no closer than 100 feet. That's,
Oh, okay.
That's the setback. So the only spot where it's closer than 100 feet is to the north. But the side, to the eastern property, it's So you can see that dashed, I don't know if you can see it, but this is that dashed line, that's a 100-foot line.
Okay.
Right.
Now, what about vegetation between that dash line and the property line?
So there's at least 50 feet of existing vegetation that will remain. So that's between the property line and you can kind of see that proposed tree line. A little bit to the right, yeah, in between. So there's 50 feet.
And what type of vegetation? I
Right.
mean,
That's existing vegetation, that's woods, that's trees.
okay. Right, right, okay. But is that also an area that you're supplementing to make it less visible?
Supplementing is the top, that top area. Right. Yeah, it's on there. Yeah, you've got it with your arrow. Yep. Just to the right of that. Yeah, right in there.
Okay. So is your concern the visibility aspect? But it's the visibility from the road. You said your own house is what?
No, it's a good distance away, but I can still see, because I can see the house that's on that property, we can see from my house.
Wouldn't we put in a stipulation for the visibility?
Well, there's a visual buffer.
Well, trees, I've never found trees to be, tall trees aren't a visual buffer to anything. Well, what could be done to prevent visibility? Because just as the one to the north, we have a homeowner who doesn't want to be looking out at a field of solar panels. What can be done on that side to address that?
Right, so from the house, that's why we have the buffer, and that's why we're doing the visual simulations. Right, so we took pictures from the yard, and that's what we'll submit with final plan, is a photo simulation. So what we do is we take a picture looking towards the array.
Okay.
Right, we went out there in the field, we marked the tree line with orange snow fence, we can see it in the photograph, right? And then we'll do a visual simulation where we actually do a 3D model that takes into account where the camera is and where it's pointing and the view angle and all that, right? So all the perspective is right, and there's a 3D simulation of where the array is, the fence and all that, and then that gets photoshopped into the picture, so you can see this is what it's going to look like.
But you're saying
so
you're going to present that at final. You don't have
a
it
final
yet.
plan,
I got
right?
it.
Right. Yeah.
So
and if that, obviously,
if it doesn't,
that's not good enough, then we got to do something, right?
Right. So the answer is that your concern about visibility is being addressed, but it has not yet been determined exactly how that's going to be, what's needed and all that, but they are going to present that at final.
Well, I'll also tell you, I let them come on to take the pictures. I was there. And where they put the fence up, the grade goes up from there. Puts the panels up higher.
Right.
And I said, we were in my backyard, I said, okay, let's move up to my house. Oh, no, we were told not to take any pictures from your house. Really?
Well, that seems problematic.
Yeah.
I can't let the field techs go in his house.
No, I was standing there.
No,
I said, you can come up.
He asked them to,
Yeah,
and
I said, go up
they
near
said
my
they
house.
were
Not
told
even near
not
the
to.
house. You can go up near the house, and they wouldn't. They were down the.
Yeah. So it's not that he was refusing it,
Let me make
it's,
this clear. I've been working with Nautilus on, this is the third project.
Sure.
They're excellent neighbors. They make sure the neighbors are happy. If the next time they go out, he wants them to stand at his deck or whatever, they'll do that.
yeah,
We'll
I'm
do-
just, if
yeah.
you could address that.
I mean,
it sounds-
we've been very successful with making neighbors happy.
Good.
And that's
Yes.
what we intend to do.
So I would say, yeah, that sounds like it
As
needs to be
happy as
done.
reasonably possible. Let me make sure.
No, of course, but I mean, obviously visibility from the house is a lot more important than visibility from the yard, you know? Right? I mean, you're in your house at night, you're looking out the window, you don't want, so that kind of thing. So it sounds like that needs to be addressed still. And then, of course, the design will come up, and I take it at final, you'll be showing us the visual simulation? Right. Excellent, okay. In high res, so we can all see it. Great. Okay?
Other concerns, transformer
Yep.
that makes noise.
This way. Hang on one second. Cheryl, did you have a question?
Yeah, just a question on that. Are we considering what season the photos are taken in?
Well, they're being taken now. And you took it, yeah, so they took it in bare foliage season.
Okay, but I didn't know if they were gonna go back and
Even if
take
they, even if
more
they do
photo. Okay.
now,
I just wanna make sure
if
it's
you-
not
you're
gonna be
It
taken
sounds
in
like
a
you're
few
gonna take
months.
more now. And I would assume that's soon?
I'm not, the pictures that they took are closer to the array, going back to the house. I thought he meant in the house. That's why I said I'm not gonna let him go in the house. That's,
Oh, okay.
that's, I mean, that's just a safety thing. Back to the house would just be better. Right, they took pictures from
Well, it depends
a
on how
few
the land,
spots.
depends on how the land goes, whether it'd be better or not,
Right.
right? If the land rises to the house, it
Right.
wouldn't be better.
We have several pictures taken from the yard, and we're looking at which is the most conservative, and that's what will be presented. So
All right.
we have that.
Okay,
Well, we'll have that for you final. Yeah, and we'll
Okay.
show where the photos were taken from
okay,
and what that looks like.
all right. But it was done in, to your point, in a non-foliage season, right? Good, thank you.
So my other concern again is how much of a buffer of trees you're gonna leave up between my property, our property, and
I think it,
it's gonna be clear cut. And the transformer, yeah, also the transformer.
Before you talk about the transfer, I think you had said what the buffer is
It'll
on
be-
that side,
it'll
right?
be at
Was it
least
50 feet worth? Okay.
Yeah. And then again, now it's the transformers, which I guess, from what I'm told, was actually told by one of the guys on the zoning board, they did generate noise.
I
And again,
think,
my
yeah, I mean,
grandkids
do
and
you
kids
have
always
a,
playing right close to that.
I haven't seen the specs lately, but I don't know what the decibel level is.
They did do a sound survey that we require.
Mhm.
I won't speak, I'll let you go ahead and answer.
That's what I was gonna say. We did the sound study. That's been submitted.
Okay.
That was submitted originally, so we did the noise study that had the transformer and showed
Right.
that it was compliant with the noise regulations.
That's what I thought.
Yeah,
Right.
there, I think you had listed that it was under or at the, I can't seem to find it on my iPad here, but
Yeah, and I've.
you had listed it, because I was looking specifically for that as well, and that has been addressed, that it is below the
Below the requirements. level.
requirements, yeah.
Right. I
Yeah,
mean,
I can
generally,
tell you what that
they,
is if
they
you
are, I mean, if you walk right up to it, you'll certainly hear it. But my understanding from other projects is that generally they're in the level of like 35 decibels at a certain distance, which is about the same as the wind in the trees. So, or, I mean, I don't mean wind, like a light breeze in the trees. That's about the same level, and that's from, relatively close. I mean, where your house is, my guess is it's gonna be zero. It's gonna be zero a long way before it gets to your house. Because 35 decibel levels is, quite low. I mean, just normal speech like this is about 70 to 75. So this is half that or less,
Right.
so.
Yeah, I've got those numbers here. Yeah, and you're right, it drops quite a bit as you move away from it, as you move away from transformer.
Right,
So,
yeah, because
you're absolutely right.
it just
It's,
doesn't have much to carry.
It's logarithmic, right. Yeah, so the noise study that we had submitted showed a maximum of 38 decibels at the property line, and the noise ordinance allows 53 decibels in a residential area.
Okay. All right.
So that's the
Thank-
property lines that you checked.
Yep. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Does anyone else wish to ask any questions or raise any concerns? No? Then we're good.
I'll make a motion and close the public hearing.
I have a motion to close. Do we have a second?
Second?
And a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The public hearing is closed at 9:21. Thank you. So at this point, we're just looking for approval. Did we modify any of the stipulations this evening?
One question I would like to ask the applicant, for the vegetated buffer, to address Mr. Croto's concerns a little. I said your last name right, Okay, just want to make sure. To address Mr. Croto's concerns on the northeast corner, I know you have it turned down. Would the applicant be willing to extend that vegetated buffer to continue a visual barrier, so when he's out enjoying his property, he doesn't look off to the side and see solar panels?
I think that's what we got the variance on from the zoning board, is to turn exactly to where it is. And we, provided evidence to the zoning board that that was reasonable, and they accepted that.
Okay. I guess I'm, and this is just probably more procedural issues, I'm having a hard time understanding all of the things that the zoning board has approved without seeing the full package that was provided to the zoning board and all of the different documentation. So while we're referencing zoning board decisions, and I understand the appeal went through their decisions in place, I'm just having a hard time following. So if I'm asking questions that have already been discussed and resolved, that's where I'm just having an issue of that disconnect.
No, I appreciate that. I would say, again, though, that Nautilus, in my experience, is a good neighbor.
Yep.
And you're going to see the visual simulations. And, to a reasonable extent possible,
Sure.
we will
Right.
do the best we can to screen the neighbor's property.
Right, and all the buffering we're talking about, I believe you said, it's all evergreen? Okay. By the way, that will also mitigate sound. That, the plantings that are yet to be done will also further reduce, they act as a sound barrier as well, because they absorb the sound waves.
Can I just ask one question?
Sure.
I'm 752 I-9. What I understood zoning board to say is the three sides are decided, the fourth side has not been decided at the last meeting. So I'm not sure if we discussed that and I missed it, but the fourth side, our side, has not been decided upon.
Well,
That's what I was left with at the last zoning board.
at the zoning board? I can't speak to what was discussed there. What I did hear this evening is that there are a number of open issues that the applicant is working on the design of, right? So the engineering firm has yet to finish their research and then propose how they're gonna.
So I did not miss it. That has not
I don't think you missed anything, no. And it will be presented at the final, at the next meeting in front of the planning board, which will be for final approval, but they will be presenting these new things that address, that seem mostly on that side, correct? Most of the new stuff is on your side of the property.
You have extra trees and vegetation, that would prevent the noise and the humming. I know it won't be loud, but humming, if I'm outside all the time.
Right.
That sound all
Yeah,
the time. Humming noise will drive me crazy.
Yeah, I think that I don't know if you have this, but maybe Nautilus has a device that you can simulate the sound, like you can put the device here and say, here's 35 decibels, and see if you can hear it when you're back there by the door, that kind of thing. I just think that would go a long way to show people how low 35 decibels really is. And then that way you'll have some appreciation for it and some comfort level. But I don't know if you have something like that, but, I'll see if there's an iPad app for it. I can.
And if I can just follow up on the comment made, I think I understand. The zoning board's finding is that the evergreen buffer was to be consistent with the landscape plan denoted as at page C2, which is what we showed you tonight. So that's what the zoning board approved. I just want to make that clear.
They saw everything that we've given to you, they have.
Yeah, oh, sure, yep. All right.
Can I have the last question? How many actual acres of trees are going to be cut on this 22-acre property? You said 12 or so solar power, but how many acres of trees?
I don't remember.
Because
what.
people are planting trees in this day and age, they're not cutting them.
No, understood. Do you have a quick number on that? I know it was covered at master plan.
Yeah, 12, it's about 12 acres.
Yeah, I remember it was somewhere around 50%, yeah. Okay. Okay, so we have no further stipulations. We are just looking for a motion.
No, I just want to tell.
Do you have something?
I want to tell the planning department to get out of my head with the blasting comment. No, I just want to thank you guys for putting that in there.
So, we need to vote on the preliminary approval. Can I have a motion, please, from somebody?
I'll make a motion that we approve the preliminary approval for Islander Solar at 850 Iron Mine with the stipulations as outlined in our agenda.
Okay, we have approval. Do we have a motion? Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
All right, we have a second from Mr. Keane. Roll call vote. Ms. Mirandola?
Yes.
Mr. Porter?
Yes.
Mr. Keane?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. So, thank you. Thank you for that. So, look forward to seeing you, no doubt, at final, when these issues should be addressed. Okay?
Before we adjourn, can I amend?
Well, we can't adjourn. We have to change the agenda to kick the can down the road.
Oh, yeah. I'll make a motion that we table item 9 to our next meeting.
To,
Second it.
I feel like Putin, you know, just. Well, it started because Dr. Benoit had pointed out the first time we were going to vote that one of the full members was not here, and he felt like full members should have choice in selecting the officers, which was a good point. But then since then, every time we meet, there's at least one full member missing, including, he is now a full member, but he had to leave early tonight. So, but Mr. Menard's also not here, so.
All right, so we got a motion and a second. Do we need a roll call on that?
No, we don't need a roll call. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Can
Okay.
I just add one item to the agenda? It's going to be quick. I'd like to talk about the comp plan one more time. So I'll make a motion that we talk about, to add to our agenda, the comprehensive plan.
For the next meeting?
No, for right now. I have a question.
Well, we have to be limited in what we talk about.
Oh, yeah.
Since it was not on this agenda.
Yeah, I
Oh,
wasn't
okay.
expecting any votes. I'm just expecting
okay.
discussion.
Okay,
So I have a motion.
second.
Okay.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
This is why I was really hoping David was going to be here. Is there a way to alleviate the burden on the two of you to do like a Google share document so that the planning board, when we start to do our comp workshop, that we have like a tracked change sort of thing, but it's kind of more of a live document. The members can go in, make their recommendations, rather than sending us a Word document, we make the changes, you and Bobby get it, and then you're trying to combine all of the track changes or whatnot.
Well, that would be, we could probably do something like that.
Okay.
Like a master document that would.
Yeah,
And
I
it
would just.
contain everybody's changes.
I was just concerned that it would,
To track everyone's changes now.
right.
Is it an open meeting?
That was my thing.
It wouldn't be an open meeting because you're not having a discussion. You're
But you
be
are
working on
by
a document.
proxy.
The document would have to come back to, the document that you'd be suggesting changes to
Mhm.
wouldn't receive any changes until you convened as a board
That's true.
to vote on the changes.
Because all of the changes that we put into the document are going to be made public.
You're just suggesting changes.
Okay.
It would be the same thing if each one of you individually mocked something up and handed it to me and said, could you import that into a...
Well, it's different. No, it's different than that because we're also seeing each other's changes.
I don't think there's an issue with you seeing
Okay,
each
I'm
other's
just saying.
changes,
Okay.
because at the end of the day, you're not deliberating, you're going to deliberate, you can't make the changes until you have a public.
That's true. We're not
Okay.
meeting as a group and discussing the changes we're making. We're doing them on our own. And
But I
that's
thought you
probably
also
what-
couldn't like pass things around via email
Mm.
in
If
a like.
you're going to make a if you're deliberating and making a decision on something, you can't discuss that among yourselves outside of a meeting.
Mhm.
If maybe it's a distinction without a difference, but if you're simply suggesting potential changes to a
right, the council does. Yep.
So you're not making any decision, you're making a recommendation to the council. Whatever document would go to the council would be a strike-through document, and I would suggest a document that you have,
Well-
a strike-through and underline. The strike-through would be language eliminated, the underline would be language proposed. You don't approve it. You just
Sure.
recommend.
Yeah,
Okay.
and even that's one step removed from that, because we're not, the final document we sent to the town council, we would have met on publicly.
You would.
Yeah.
You would discuss it publicly, and then there would be, the public hearing would take place before the council. The council would take public input. The council makes the decision, not the planning.
Yep.
Right.
Okay. That was just one thing, because just hearing from others in this building that you guys are overly burdened, I don't want,
I spent all day on one issue today.
okay,
It's not
yeah.
related to the planning department.
Okay, so thank you for that clarification. To go off one other item, I do want to add an additional item to the agenda.
Well,
Be-
before you do that.
Okay.
The comp plan topic makes me wonder again, have we done anything to look at adding an internship to the planning department?
That's my next thing I was going to add to the agenda.
But I
You're
felt
stealing
it's-
my thunder.
That's all right. Great minds think alike, and fools seldom differ, so. So what's the process for submitting that?
Well, here,
idea?
can I make an agenda addition? So I make a motion that we add to our agenda staffing for the planning department.
Your staff,
The-
I guess you can make a suggestion.
Just for discussion,
Yeah.
just for discussion, again. So I need a second.
Well, and let me ask, are you in favor of having an intern?
I need a second.
No, no, but if they don't want it, we shouldn't impose it on them.
Oh, because I have a question for them. That's all.
I see.
So that's why
Okay.
we have our second.
So we're in favor? We're in favor?
Aye.
Yep, next.
These discussions are better had, outside of the meeting.
Well,
Yeah.
my question for the two of you is, as a board, is there anything that we can do to help unburden you with items that come before us as a whole? Because we're a team here, and I've been hearing that you guys have been swamped. And anybody that's swamped is stressed, and I don't want you guys stressed. So, because you guys do a lot of good for this town, and I don't want to lose that good.
But it's also keeping you focused
So-
on where your skill set really is,
So
where you
if
add
it-
most value, right?
if
If I have my top software engineer doing tech support on one of our products, I'm losing money, really, right? Because one probably gets paid, 50% more than the other, but also is doing a skill that not many can do. And where I can fill that other role, right? So, just from as Jeff's saying, even just from a satisfaction perspective, I'm sure that the things that you really want to work on are the meat of planning, not administrivia.
And, with budget season coming up, if we need to advocate for our planning department to have a seasonal intern
Yeah.
or another part-time staff member, I don't want to put you guys on the spot, but I want you two to know that we support you, or, we as a board support you.
Yeah.
So if we need to rattle some cages, get loud so that you get the help that you need, we'll do that. That's all.
Yeah.
Because I've been to way too many town council meetings the past couple months.
Yeah.
I'm really sorry.
Yeah.
CJ too,
Yeah, it's like-
CJ sits through them. And I've heard the departments in this building are very busy and that they can't address certain things that need to be addressed. So if that means we have to increase some staff, then
And-
I will be here front and center with
Yep.
bells and ribbons and whistles advocating for additional assistance because we just need it. That's all.
And this is a great environment especially for an intern or any sort of, because they would learn so much. And you know what you get if you interview and get the right intern, you get someone who is eager to do just about anything. Because remember, what is mundane and boring to you is up to their eyeballs in complexity.
We're doing, Bobby and I are doing a lot of training in our office.
Okay. So that is all. Just know that you have our support.
Yeah.
If,
Whatever you decide to do, that's your prerogative.
Well, so it'd be nice if we got some input about what you need.
we won't put them on the spot. We won't put them on the spot.
In a separate venue, perhaps, in a separate venue, we could, you know,
So our department is varied, and we participate in a lot of things. Townwide.
yeah.
Multiple departments, tax assessor's office, clerk's office, finance department, public works department. There's not a day that we're not interacting probably with each and every one of those departments.
Right. Okay.
Come to us that
Building department,
can't be handled
zoning.
in any of the other departments. So we shoulder a lot of that.
Is that simply because is this in the category, I'm gonna give it to the people I know will get it done? Or is it going to you because really nobody else can do it?
Now you really put them on the spot.
Sorry. Sorry. Well, yeah, I get it.
So just know that if there are applications that come in, that you guys that are, you know, you want to pass it, because as a planning board, we do have the ability to review applications too. I know there's a time clock that comes in, but if we have our secondary meetings, so if we need to have a secondary meeting just to take that burden off of you.
Well, yeah, understood, so I appreciate
Okay.
that. So you know, prior to anyone submitting anything to us, or if they do submit something to us, and I'm going to, somebody saw my, Gary, you responded to my email.
Yes.
I have a process that I follow,
Mhm.
and I make requests when I need things, and if I don't, no clock starts ticking at any particular point when someone submits something to me until I decide it starts ticking.
Okay.
Typically, that's triggered by a check.
Mhm.
So no application is complete until you give us money.
Perfect.
When some applications come in, we actually had an application come in with a check, and I gave it back because we couldn't support it. We went back and forth with the engineer and the applicant. I finally said, I prefer not to take your application because we're gonna make a recommendation to deny you. The applicant, not the engineer kept insisting, the applicant sent an email, said, I will withdraw.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So I think as far as that goes, you vet these
Sure.
projects very thoroughly.
And we are forever thankful for that.
Ask for what we believe we need. And, we go through the stipulations and we try to,
Mhm.
try to determine in advance what people are concerned about.
Okay.
Right.
I won't put you guys on the spot anymore, so I'm going to make a motion that we adjourn.
Okay.
Unless anybody
We have
has
a
anything
motion?
else to add.
And those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned at 9:40.